Let's get the take of all this of the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, who joins us now. Really good to see you this morning, and thank you for your time. I know you want to talk about funding for teenagers and things, and we will come to that in a moment. But first and foremost, I mean, there's a lot to get through. Let's kick off with the seatbelt issue, should we? A lot of our viewers and listeners saying, well, does it really matter? Is it really important? I mean, the Prime Minister's held his hand up to this, but surely someone should have spotted all of this before it went out on Twitter.
Look, what I can tell you is, of course, the Prime Minister put his hand straight up. It was a mistake. He's apologised for it. He takes responsibility for it. He hasn't actually gone down that path of blaming anyone else. He's taken responsibility for it, and he'll pay the fine. He's a human as well as a incredibly busy politician, the Prime Minister. He's got a frantic, hectic schedule, but he's made it clear there's no excuses. He just holds his hands up. And I think in terms of what your viewers describe, whether they think it's important or not important, I think hopefully people recognise he's been very straight up about it and immediately put his hand up.
Yes, immediately put his hands up, but many would say it's just not a good look, is it, for a sitting Prime Minister to have now received 2 fixed penalty notices in the space of a year. And another thing that is not a good look is Nadeem Zahawi paid a penalty to HMRC as part of a £1 million tax settlement. The Guardian is putting that figure at £4.8 million. Labour are now calling for Nadeem Zahawi to be sacked. Do you think he should be?
No, look, he's been very clear about his tax affairs. They're personal to him. I can't vouch for them, but he's been very clear, and rightly so, that he's got no tax liabilities outstanding, and he's paid all the tax that was due. So, look, I think that's right. That's what people expect. And he's doing a great job in government. He was, of course, the minister that rolled out the vaccines task force, the quickest vaccine rollout in Europe. He's, I think, done a great job serving the people of this country. But, of course, it's right that his tax affairs are up to date and that tax has been paid when it was due.
Well, but I mean, the problem is, according to The Guardian, he's had to pay back tax he owed with a 30% penalty. Now, we don't know if that's absolutely right or not, because that hasn't been clarified by the man himself. But, I mean, that's indicating that tax hasn't been paid on time, has it? Which, I mean, it might be sorted now, but isn't that problematic, especially at a time when, you know, you as a government are so reliant on people, on getting the tax income in?
Look, and we've done a great job in reducing the tax gap. But look, what I can tell you about Nadeem Zahawi's is what he's said, which is that all his tax has been paid, it's up to date, he's engaged fully with HMRC, and I can't comment on leaked reports for whatever source they come from in The Guardian.
Can we talk about a portfolio you're very familiar with, justice, of course? Where does that look? I mean, what's your view?
Of course.
What's your view on what is happening with the police at the moment, and indeed some of the police checks, which, I mean, frankly, don't seem to have been thorough enough? We're hitting a situation where, and it's damaging to the 99.9% of fantastic police officers that we have, that these scandals that are emerging are damaging the reputation of the police in the mind of the public.
No, I agree, and there can be no hiding from this. And in fairness, there's a huge amount of work that's going on to check the data and the record of all officers in all of the different forces across the country. Excuse me. There's also work with the National Policing College to strengthen the vetting processes going forward. In terms of the Met, the new commissioner, who I know, Sir Mark Rowley, he was Chief Constable in Surrey in my area, is going through all of the things that they need to do, making sure that the checks are in place, that there's zero tolerance. And what I want to say to the women, the young girls of this country, is that we're doing everything we can to give them the confidence in the police and the criminal justice system. And we've worked very hard. We've got a 24/7 rape support line we've literally just announced, and a whole range of measures from dealing with the first contact with the police and with that helpline through to the independent domestic abuse and sexual violence advisors that will help women and girls through the criminal justice system. And we've increased the volume of rape convictions by 2/3 over the last year. So from everything from the actions we're taking on police and vetting in the way I described to making sure women can feel confident in the justice system, we're doing everything we can. And we must make further improvements for all the reasons that you gave.
I mean, the cases of David Carrick this week and Wayne Couzens just a very short time ago, I mean, they're fresh in people's memories. Trust is shattered in the Metropolitan Police at the moment, even though, as Stephen says, 99.9% of police officers are doing a very good job. But that trust is no longer there. Does the Metropolitan Police need reform?
Yes, absolutely. And Sir Mark Rowley is taking that forward. And there is the broader work, not just in the Met Police, but everywhere else, on the checks of existing officers, but also the vetting going forward. We must make sure these kind of cases don't happen in the future and do everything we can, not just to change that objective reality, the checks and put them in place, but to make sure that women and young girls feel confident in the system. We must have that confidence, and we need to be very clear about the mistakes that have taken place, and drive forward that change in the way that I've described.
How difficult a situation are you in regard to strikes at the moment? I mean, there's so many people going on strike. It's frankly terrifying at the moment. But teachers obviously had this 6-hour meeting with Nick Gibb, the schools minister. I mean, who's a man who knows his stuff. He's been a schools minister, apart from a small break in the middle. For a long time, he knows his stuff. But to say that they wanted to talk about workload, conditions of teachers in schools on top of pay, and they've got nowhere after 6 hours, is hugely disturbing, isn't it? Because the last thing you want is for teachers to be on strike, and yet there doesn't seem to be any leeway at the moment.
Look, we don't want that, and we recognise the great job that teachers do, and we recognise that for all those at the moment in the public sector, particularly the lowest paid, that this is a tough time. The challenge that we've got is we've just started to see inflation come down. Our plan is working. Inflation eats away at the salaries of all of those on the lowest incomes, whether in the public or the private sector, and the worst thing now would be, with inflation busting pay rises, to push back up inflation or to see it stay higher for longer. That would only hurt the very people, including teachers, that we want to protect. So the plan is working. You can see that from the inflation now coming down, but we've got to see it through for this year, otherwise we'll be in a worse position next year.
Mr. Raab, thank you so much for your patience, because we know that you've been on. You're meant to be here to speak about sports initiatives for vulnerable young people, but there are so many stories here that we wanted to talk to you about. But please do tell us now about this new initiative. It's to help thousands of troubled teenagers benefiting with a cash boost to support local sports groups.
Well, we're investing $5 million in some of the toughest areas, most deprived areas across the country. 200 organisations will benefit. And it's really about encouraging young people from those backgrounds to get involved in sport. I was in Haringey looking at some of the boxing and football initiatives. And we know that this can be a really positive outlet for young people, and not just good for them, for their health, for their mental well-being, for keeping them, giving them the kind of camaraderie, team spirit that sport is so brilliant at doing. But from my point of view as Justice Secretary, it's a great way to prevent young people getting drawn into antisocial behaviour, crime, gangs and violence. So it's really important part of the toolkit of keeping our streets safer. So I think it has that double effect, and we want to track very carefully those projects that have the best impact, and we'll look further at investing in those areas in the future.
Yeah, an investment in our communities, hopefully. Deputy Prime Minister, really good to talk to you. Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.